And let me just try to make, not an argument, but try to look back at history and say something dark, in essence, is while regulation seems to be, oversight seems to be exactly the right thing to do here, it seems that human beings, what they naturally do is they wait for something to go wrong. If you're talking about nuclear weapons, you can't talk about nuclear weapons being dangerous until somebody actually, like the United States, drops the bomb, or Chernobyl melting. Do you think we will have to wait for things going wrong in a way that's obviously damaging to society? Not an existential risk, but obviously damaging. Or do you have faith that...
I hope not, but I mean, I think we do have to look at history. And so the two examples you gave, nuclear weapons and nuclear power, are very, very interesting because, in nuclear weapons, we knew in the early years of the 20th century that atoms contained a huge amount of energy, right? We had E equals mc squared. We knew the mass differences between the different atoms and their components, and we knew that you might be able to make an incredibly powerful explosive. So H.G. Wells wrote a science fiction book, I think in 1912. Mm-hmm. Frederick Soddy, who was the guy who discovered isotopes, is a Nobel Prize winner, he gave a speech in 1915 saying that 1 pound of this new explosive would be the equivalent of 150 tons of dynamite, which turns out to be about right. And, this was in World War I, right? So he was imagining how much worse the world war would be if we were using that kind of explosive. But the physics establishment simply refused to believe that these things could be made.
Including the people who are making it.
Well, so they were doing the nuclear physics.
I mean, eventually we're the ones who made it. And you talk about Fermi or whoever.
Well, so up to... The development was mostly theoretical. So it was people using sort of primitive kinds of particle acceleration and doing experiments at the level of single particles or collections of particles. They weren't yet thinking about how to actually make a bomb or anything like that. But they knew the energy was there, and they figured if they understood it better, it might be possible. But the physics establishment, their view, and I think because they did not want it to be true, their view was that it could not be true, that this could not provide a way to make a superweapon. And, there was this famous speech given by Rutherford, who was the sort of leader of nuclear physics, and it was on September 11th, 1933, and he said, anyone who talks about the possibility of obtaining energy from transformation of atoms is talking complete moonshine. And the next morning, Leo Szilard read about that speech and then invented the nuclear chain reaction. And so as soon as he had that idea that you could make a chain reaction with neutrons, because neutrons were not repelled by the nucleus, so they could enter the nucleus and then continue the reaction. As soon as he has that idea, he instantly realized that the world was in deep doo-doo. Because this is 1933, right? Hitler had recently come to power in Germany. Szilard was in London and eventually became a refugee and came to the US. And in the process of having the idea about the chain reaction, he figured out basically how to make a bomb and also how to make a reactor. And he patented the reactor in 1934, but because of the situation, the great power conflict situation that he could see happening, he kept that a secret. And so between then and the beginning of World War II, people were working, including the Germans, on how to actually create neutron sources, right? What specific fission reactions would produce neutrons of the right energy to continue the reaction. And that was demonstrated in Germany, I think, in 1938, if I remember correctly. The first nuclear weapon patent was 1939 by the French. So this was actually, this was actually going on, well before World War II really got going. And then, the British probably had the most advanced capability in this area, but for safety reasons, among others, and plus just resources, they moved the program from Britain to the US, and then that became Manhattan Project. So the reason why we couldn't have any kind of oversight of nuclear weapons and nuclear technology was because we were basically already in an arms race and a war.